Good day, YouTubers. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls from all around the world. I need to get a little turntable, don't I? Yeah, I think that would be cool. So the last thing I want to do on this is put some of these fairy lights inside there. I got some LED stuff, but the LEDs are pretty big, and I can run this in the ceiling and hide it pretty good, and it'll throw a lot of light down. And then put the battery box down underneath the bottom here where I can still access it to replace the batteries or turn it on and off. And then when it's highlighted in the display case, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Like I did on the this has got lights in it, and the battery box is mounted on the back and wired in. This one's got 3 lanterns, or 4 lanterns, 3 on the back and 1 up there, and those are working off of a battery box also, but the battery box is outside the display case over here. That's a spare battery on there now. Yeah, I got to replace the battery in it, it's dead. But I ran that in under the floor to the bottom of the ship, and that goes to these 4 lanterns. There's one up there on the main mast. So I'll probably put this battery box outside the display case and run this down underneath through to hide it. So the news today, other than we're done building this and we're going to add some stuff that isn't in the plans. Like we did last week, we put more bundles of rope hanging on the veiling pins to give it a more realistic look. And I went ahead and purchased enough acrylic sheeting. I'll cut a piece out of this for the base, and maybe the top. I'm going to put a light in here, so I don't know how I want to do the top yet, but I am going to top light it like I've done these other display cases. Have top lighting in them to come down. Let me see if I can. Yeah. So the switch for that is up on the back side of the display case near the top. And this one's got a switch up on the top of the display case. Same kind of switch. And that down lights the ship inside the case, so it really really highlights everything better so you can see. So a little bit of extra work, but I do have 2 more of these left. Came extra from a job. I got to fix one of them. Wire's broken there. I'm soldered it back on, but the other one works. And that's just about the right size for the top of this display case. But I may do something different because I'm going to build another display case for the HMS Bounty, and I may want to put two in it like we did here. If I do that, then I'll have a different kind of light in the display case for this San Francisco. So we just play it by ear until we decide what we like and do it. So I'm just debating on how I want to cut these down. This is a cabinet grade hardwood pine, and well, pine isn't hardwood, but it is a nice beefy board that I can cut grooves in for this glass. But I think I'm gonna make it a 1x1 instead, or 3/4 by 3/4 instead of this full width for the vertical corners of the glass retention apparatus, and figure out a way to, I'll probably cut a slot in the board for the base like we did on these, and then you can just set the whole case down on over the ship into that slot. This one's the same way. There's a slot cut in the base for the case to go in there. There's just a couple dabs of glue so that case doesn't just come off if you pick it up by the glass. So that's the new things for this week. We're gonna start on building this display case for the San Francisco after I get these lights in here. And then I built this, oh, probably 8 years ago, maybe more. And it's been sitting up there in the shop for all that time. We used it originally for some design work on maybe building some pergolas or gazebos or lanais or something back here. But we ended up deciding not to do that, and we put these sheds in instead. You know, my wife's got a she shed and I got a man cave. So after we did that, we changed our mind on building stuff out here. And I also have a drain field out here too, so I really can't build anyway. So after we spent the time on the design for building something back in the backyard, and my idea was a pergola or whatever. I built several pergolas coming off the back of the house here and spreading out in the backyard with sort of a post and frame kind of pergolas, and ended up using that wood up to build other stuff. But this was left over from that design phase, and what's new about it now is that we're thinking about adding on to the front of the house. So this here and that concrete below, and this here and this here, that's like a lean-to on the side, is what we would add to the front of the house. and get down here. You can see a little better. So from here back is all existing. And of course we've got part of this in the front. Before you get to the laundry room back there, we got that screened off over to the front door or the side door, and it goes into the kitchen. This is really the front door over here. So we have this existing narrow front porch and that carport that you can drive into. And then this is where I park my truck, and it's sitting on 2x2 pavers over on this side. So because my wife drives a 2021 Tesla Model Y, we want to extend our carport out a little bit this way to give us some more coverage to protect that vehicle. And then to make it even more complicated, we want to screen all this in except for over here. We would leave this not screened, but all this would get screened in, and we would remove the screen wall that's back here by the kitchen door, and then we would have a roll-up motorized automatic screen door here in front part of the carport. So, have you ever heard of such a thing? And to make it worse, I'm not building it. Normally I would build something like this myself, but since I've had this pacemaker installed in my chest, I'm not 100% anymore. So I'm sure you could see that ICD implant. So not being 100% anymore, I don't want to push myself to do something that I might regret. And I'm well enough off that I can afford to pay somebody else to do it for a change, which is very rare for me. I never pay anybody else to do stuff. I do it myself. But just using this foam board and some hot glue, I a couple days ago added this stuff here on the front and the side to the existing model that I built years and years ago, so that we're gonna get a bunch of contractors to bid the job. And while we're getting all these bids, it gives instead of something on paper and elevation drawings and all that mess, I'm more visual for building something and telling other people what you want built. It's a lot easier to have a more realistic visual model of what you want. And that's our plan. So if there wasn't enough going on, okay, thanks for watching.